Unfortunately, an 18-year-old kid from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, went missing on the 4th of July with 3 friends, and he didn't come home. 2 days later, his body was found in the water off of Horn Island. The official investigation is still open, and the autopsy results aren't fully public yet. And the family is hurting. We know that. But what's been happening around the story is almost as interesting as the story itself. Let's look at how this is all being framed.
Wait, major update on Nolan. So you're telling me the news and police lied that Nolan friends did not give back his phone to the mom. The mom had to track the phone down and go to the friend house and make them give the phone back.
Honestly, for those instances, it was right around because she had issues dating his phone as well. And she ended up calling me, and I think I spoke with her, she put me on speakerphone, and I was like, hey, yes, Christine, I know what's wrong. We need his phone, we're trying to find him.
Where both his Snapchats have been wiped of everything that happened that day in conversation. Then they lied about not knowing where Nolan car keys was to the where they homegirl said, Cap, the keys is on top of the Xbox. She seen him put it there. And his homeboys had to go get it. The dad took a boat to the island on July 5th to try to find his body. They could not find it. He went missing July 4th. But he magically appeared July 6th? There were people on the island and all. No one seen a body float. But on July 6th, when no one was there, that's when the body appeared? Yo, do you think we stupid? Yo, I ain't gonna lie. I don't know what Mississippi Sheriff Department got going on, but at this point, a higher power needs to investigate this. Bring the FBI or private investigators. Clearly, the Sheriff Department got some other means.
Some voices are already saying that the 3 friends should be arrested for tampering with evidence, theft, and worse. They're pointing to the phone, the keys, deleted text message, and an alleged fight on the boat. The energy is high and the conclusion is already there. Here's the thing, though. The people closest to Nolan, his actual parents, haven't gone there yet. They're asking questions and demanding answers right now. But they're not the ones leading with arrest him now. That's coming from people watching from the outside.
He was one black with 3 young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys. Then there's just too many questions that they should not be closing the investigation. Now, I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm a little different than some of y'all. I was built different. My nose is out here, my eyes are here, my brain is here, which means some things I could smell before I could see and before I can figure out. This does not smell right. So some people are saying, Reverend, are y'all bringing in race? Well, we're not bringing in race, but we're not discounting race either, because we don't know what it is. So to tell us don't rush to judgment saying it was racist, it's fine. But then I'm telling you, don't rush to judgment saying it was not racism, because we do not know. We do know what these parents are being told, and what the parents have now shared with us does not make sense.
Okay. Al Sharpton. It always comes out when it's convenient. This is where it shifts, right? Sharpton, he steps in and says Nolan was one black with 3 young white men who ended up with his phone and keys, and that also that, it doesn't smell right. He's telling people not to rush to say it's racism while immediately framing it through race in any way. That's the move. You don't have to say the word if you can make everybody think about it without you having to say it at all.
Media literacy 101. Let's look at Nolan Wells' parents' first interview.
That Nolan traveled to Horn Island with, they say that he stayed behind voluntarily. Why would he stay behind?
That we cannot answer.
Bless Michael, because he had it right the first time. The question should have been, do you believe that? Not asking these grieving parents to defend a decision that we don't even know for certain their deceased son made. That was not an objective question. Subjectively, I would say that it was insensitive. It also absolves authorities, because as I showed you before, that's not just the friend's version of what happened. That's now authorities' official version.
I can't fathom why he would.
I don't know why he would. we always taught him to, if you go with a group, you stay with a group.
Many news organizations haven't yet learned that they cannot always trust law enforcement as primary sources of credible information, and that is what plays into racial divisions. Ignoring the historical context of Mississippi, the state with the most recorded lynchings in history, in the current context of a young man who goes out with friends, they return, he winds up dead. According to his parents, they say he had messages that appeared to be deleted. The body didn't wash up with the tide on Sunday. They didn't find it until Monday. It's being immediately ruled an accidental drowning. By ignoring that context, news organizations become complicit in upholding white supremacy, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, end up playing into racial divisions.
Any parent would fight for their kids to find out if anything happened, what did happen. So we just want honesty and transparency. We want a thorough investigation. We want that same respect that would be given to anybody else, and that's it. We just want answers.
These parents deserve more than what they've gotten so far from local law enforcement and from national media, who should at this point now be looking at law enforcement with more skepticism. Tag your favorite independent journalists and information-based content creators, because the more people talk about this and understand how media can be used for manipulation, the better we can all consume information. I'm Janae Norman. I used to do the news. Now I just report the facts and uncomfortable truths.
Man, that's an incredible slogan. I used to do the news and now report the facts. Hold on. I got you. Can y'all see that? Y'all can't see the chills? I don't think it's showing. Oh, there y'all go. Y'all can see the chills. Got chills when she said that one. That was powerful. You know? You get the media layer on top. Now it's not just about what happens to Nolan. It's about how trusting law enforcement or waiting for facts somehow upholds white supremacy. You know, the story stops being about one young man who died and starts becoming proof of a larger system that needs to be torn down. That framing doesn't leave much room for, you know, maybe we should just get the facts first.
Do you think race might be a factor?
Like my wife said, I don't want to believe that, but it's so many things have happened, and so many things have been swept under the rug. Like I said, Nolan didn't see color. He saw people for who they are, and I used to always tell him, "So you need to go out there close, because everyone is not going to reciprocate that same love that you give." I just want transparency. I just want to know what happened to my son.
Christine, why does that make you so emotional?
Because he just had a big heart. Like, to really know Nolan, to have him as your friend it was something special. People aren't like him. He was just different. And
do you worry that he might have trusted too much?
Sometimes, yeah. And that was something we always talked to him about.
Man, it's tough to watch. I mean, but listen to his father. He said he doesn't want to believe that race had anything to do with it. He talks about how Nolan didn't see color and how close he was with his friends. And that's this person who actually lost his son speaking. It's worth noticing that the people turning this into a national racial story, the fastest are not the ones who raised him.
And we know, Ben, that you said that you're going to do an independent investigation.
Yes.
And you say you have Nolan's cell phone and messages were deleted. How could you tell messages were deleted?
Well, his parents got the phone back, and that's something that's important, Michael, because they tracked this phone on Life 360.
So Life 360, but when I received the phone call from Warren, I immediately called my friend Tashima, and I said, hey, have you guys seen Nolan? Because her two sons, Jalen and Javon, like they grew up together. They played City League sports together. When they got into school, they played sports together. And so she was like, hey, like, okay, the boys were pulling up the location from Snapchat. So the Snapchat location looks completely different than the Life 360 location. So when I pulled up Life 360, it was different. It was showing everywhere the phone had been. Like it had, I was like, well, it's showing that he's back on land. Like I'm not, he's like, but no, he didn't come back with us.
Well, how were you able to get the phone?
So we tracked it, and my friend Tashima went and picked it up.
It wasn't like they said we got his phone. They tracked it, and that highlights all these contradictions, Michael. The fact that they said Nolan was talking to a young woman, and she said that he said, I'm going back to get on the boat with the boys. The boys said that he said he was going to stay with her. And so that's an obvious contradiction. And then this video of this, you can hear an argument going where Nolan is saying, give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing? And so then his phone ends up missing. I don't know any teenagers, Michael Strahan, who says, if you believe their story, I'm going to stay behind and I'm going to leave my phone. I mean, no young person leaves their cell phone. And so then there's so many things their parents were telling us about, even why didn't his body wash up with the tide on Sunday? Why would it come on Monday? It's not adding up. And that is the problem when you think about the history of Mississippi.
And Attorney Crump, where do we go from here? What's next?
Well, the deleted messages that Christina was going to briefly touch on, we want to get the phone and figure that out.
Backtrack on that. When we finally got his phone, me and my sister went through the phone. We went in his Snapchat. He had 2 accounts, absolutely nothing. It wasn't even 24 hours, which is how long videos and pictures stay in Snapchat. And I was just like, that can't be. Like, I've seen Nolan whenever he snaps, like when he goes and he's having fun, like he does videos. Like there was absolutely nothing, no saved videos. And even my sister was like, yeah, that's suspicious,
Michael,
you know.
We having an independent autopsy done at the behest of his family. Colin Kaepernick helped pay for the independent autopsy. We flew his body up from Mississippi to D.C. because they wanted an autopsy done by a person with no interaction with the Mississippi law enforcement, because there's an issue of trust here that is really important. And the fact that they keep trying to say, well, suggesting it was a drowning, but nobody out there reported him drowning. It's not adding up, Michael Strahan. It is not adding up.
And honestly, we are doing this because at the end of the day, I would hope any parent would fight for their kids to find out if anything happened, what did happen. So we just want honesty and transparency. We want a thorough investigation. We want that same respect that would be given to anybody else, and that's it. We just want answers.
Well, we really appreciate all of you being here. We hope you get the answers that you deserve to have, and we hope you get the closure that you need. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Now, this is where it gets more interesting. His mother and father sit down and start laying out the actual inconsistencies. You know, the Life 360 tracking showed one thing, Snapchat showed another. Messages and videos that should have still been there were gone. The story the friends told about why Nolan stayed behind doesn't line up with the other things, you know, they said. And these are just the real questions about what those 3 young men did and didn't do that night. And these questions deserves real answers, but when you rush to make it about race before you can even finish asking them, you risk turning a possible crime into a political talking point.
Our information reveals the use of corrosive chemicals and other tools that were used to accelerate the destruction of her little body. After this was completed, these 2 individuals poured what remains were left of Javelia into the Cedar Creek Reservoir.
Here are the parents who did this, and here was that little girl. Obviously, anyone with half a brain knows that this is disgusting. So the child died from being physically abused by one of them or both of them. And then in order to, which essentially is homicide by child abuse. And then they tried to cover it up by essentially using corrosive acid, I guess, to, destroy her body. Or I should say, dissolve her body and then pour her remains somewhere else. But here's what caught my attention about this video. Think about this. We've seen a bunch of Black people right now talking about what happened at the lake with that young man disappearing and dying. But how many Black people do you see talking about this? Where's the outrage about this? This girl was with her own parents, died as a result of an abuse, and then they used acid to dissolve her body and try to hide their crimes. Like I've said before, we have this goofball here and many other people saying things like this.
Stop killing our children.
Now, what do you bet she won't make a video in relation to this situation? And this is what catches my attention about this, because it's backwards and it's stupid. We'll go focus on any time that a Black person dies at the hands of a white person. We got to be on it. We got to talk about it. We got to make it something. And then we talk about, well, we're protecting Black life. No, you're not. You're focused on a narrative. Because if you were truly focused on Black life, right? Why wouldn't you be outraged about this situation? Why wouldn't you guys be making a big deal talking about this? They're gonna try to sweep this under the rug. Most Black people won't even know this happened. Most Black people who are killed die at the hands of other Black people. And if we truly want to talk about saving more lives of Black Americans, we need to have that real discussion. I mean, and these Black people, like I said, they're fiending to find something about racism. Again, if a Black person dies and there's white people around, we're all about it. We're in it. We're talking about it. This has got to be something to do with racism. But when we kill each other, it's quiet. Again, this girl was abused to death by her parents. They then used acid to dissolve her body and discard of her body. And the people who claim they care about Black lives aren't outraged. They care more about a racism narrative that they want to push than they actually do about Black lives. You can call me all day. It doesn't change the reality of what I'm saying. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. More Black people are dying at the hands of Black people than any other race in this country. I have a free email newsletter where I cover these topics in more detail. The link is in my profile. Click that link, drop your email in, and you'll be good to go.
Meanwhile, a 4-year-old Black girl in South Carolina was reportedly abused to death by her own parents, then dissolved in acid and dumped in a reservoir. Both parents, thank God, have been charged. The story is barely moving the same needle. Now, when the people responsible for harming a Black child are also Black, the outrage machine doesn't kick into the same gear. It doesn't. It's the same voices that turned Nolan's case into a national conversation in less than a week have been much quieter here. That's the part that's hard to miss if you're paying attention. Now, the Nolan Wells case still needs real answers. The family still deserves to know exactly what happened to their son, and if anybody did something wrong, they should be held accountable, no matter what color they are. But when certain voices immediately turn every tragedy involving a Black person and a white person into proof of their favorite narrative, it stops being about that family. It starts being about something else. Black Americans have seen this movie enough times to know when a script is already written before the facts come in. The race card doesn't actually help families get justice. It just gives people something to argue about while the real questions sit unanswered. I want y'all to drop your honest take in the comments, though. What part of the story do you want real answers on? And if you made it to the end of this video, I want you to write the word answers, please. Y'all be safe. Go check on somebody today. You can quite literally be saving their life.